American Comics. Fantasy of Becoming a God. Chapter 1. The mountains are stacked in green, as if you were in huge amounts of emeralds. The sun shines on the mountains, flashing with tiny golden light, which complements the green all over the mountains and fields, forming a beautiful picture. And in the depths of the mountains, rumble, the huge amounts of sound spread everywhere. It turned out that this was a waterfall. The waterfall was like a huge amounts of silver dragon, swooping down from the sky, roaring into the deep pool, splashing countless crystal water droplets. And on a large rock under the waterfall, a figure was sitting cross-legged and looming, experiencing the impact and washing of more than 20 tons of water per second. If an outsider saw this scene, he would be shocked, because it is impossible for humans to do this. I don't know how long it has been. Boom! I saw the figure sitting cross-legged suddenly stand up, clenched his fist and punched upwards. The powerful force seemed to print a golden glow, and the falling waterfall was frozen, with a faint tendency to roll back, but in the end, it still fell down. The man stood on the smooth huge stone in silence for a while, and finally leaned down slightly. The explosive force turned him into an arrow, breaking through the falling water curtain and landing on the river beach a few hundred meters away. In the sunlight, his figure and face were revealed. He was 1.8 meters tall, with black hair dancing in the wind, a handsome face, but only wearing shorts, bare feet, arms as hard as stone, and muscle lines appeared more distinct in the sun, exuding a masculine beauty. From the handsome features, he still retained a childish atmosphere, obviously still very young. Is it still a little short? The young man sighed, then looked up at the sky. The blue sky and the hanging sun were like a scroll, outlining his memories. His name is Leon, and he lives in a quiet town. This town called Sedona is located in the southwest of Ohio, on the bank of a river. The mountains and trees here are densely covered with rivers, and the scenery is very good, but due to geographical reasons, there will be a long period of rainy season. The town is very peaceful, with a population of about 3,000 people. It has complete infrastructure and a highway that goes directly to the city. It takes about an hour to drive to the city. Leon has a happy and peaceful family. His father, Li Shang, is an Asian and a professional dentist. His mother, Amy, is a beautiful blonde and a professional middle school teacher. He also has a 4-year-old sister, Lily, and a 3-year-old brother, Li Dian. His father's salary as a dentist is definitely considered high in the United States, and even in a small town, his monthly income is $10,000. In 2000, this monthly income had reached the middle and upper class, plus his mother's $3,400 as a middle school teacher, which was enough for a family of 4 to live happily in a small town. However, 4 years ago, when he was 12 years old, he had an accident while playing, resulting in a brain impact. Then, he suddenly broke the mystery of the womb and awakened his past life memories. Not only that, he also found a crystal in his mind with golden liquid flowing in it. After integrating his memory, Leon discovered that this world had mutant and the most famous group in the United States, the Stark Group. He then understood what a dangerous world he had come to in his second life. This made Leon a little anxious and confused, but fortunately he thought of the beautiful crystal and golden liquid in his mind. After many attempts, he roughly understood the function of this thing. The crystal golden liquid seemed to have some kind of power. Through his thoughts and ideas, evaporating the liquid would give him some unexpected things out of thin air. In the first experiment, he evaporated a small amount of golden liquid, and as a result, a small bag of beans similar to broad beans appeared in his hand. For insurance, he took out one, cut a small part, and then caught a mouse to feed it. After there was no abnormality, he continued to observe and found that the mouse had not eaten for several days and did not show any hunger. This made Leon seem to think of something, and then he cut the mouse more than a dozen times, and fed the remaining beans to the mouse. The mouse's injuries recovered quickly, and the hideous knife marks disappeared. This proved the identity of these beans. Senzu beans, the most magical food in the Dragon Ball world, only need to eat one to not be hungry for 10 days, and have extremely strong recovery power. As long as the person is not dead, he can instantly restore physical strength and energy in extreme fatigue and adjust the body to the best state. This discovery made Leon excited at the time. He understood that the evaporation of the golden liquid seemed to be able to materialize something immediately. You know, he only evaporated a small drop of golden liquid, and exchanged for a full 100 senzu beans. What about evaporating all the golden liquid? Leon made a decisive bet and evaporated all the remaining golden liquid. The result was that he won the bet. A huge golden box appeared in front of him. On the box was a pattern of a graceful girl in a veil holding a water bottle, which was exquisite and sacred. This was the Golden Saint Cloth Aquarius, and he had a wonderful connection with the golden box. He also learned how to practice to awakening the microcosm without a teacher. When he awakens the microcosm, he will also be able to open the box and put on the Golden Saint cloth. Perhaps because of the materialization, he was recognized by the gold armor from the very beginning. He was the owner of the armor. He did not need to meet many conditions like the gold saints to get the armor's recognition. So he began his cruel training career, focusing on training to death as long as he could not die. Anyway, he had 100 senzu beans as a base. He had personally tested that no matter how many injuries he suffered from training, including internal injuries, he only needed 1/5 of the senzu beans to completely self-heal. He could even keep full for 3 days. In other words, he actually had 500 senzu beans to squander. In 4 years, he grew from a mortal to one step away from breaking through to the sixth sense. This ability is not worth mentioning compared to the group of perverts who became gold saints at the age of 7, such as Shaka, the gold saint, but Leon is satisfied. In addition, what worries him is that the thing he calls fantasy crystal does not seem to produce and accumulate golden liquid by itself. In addition to training, he also has to think about how to obtain golden liquid. The golden liquid that was exchanged for the gold saint cloth only occupies 1% of the crystal. If the accumulation is evaporated, the harvest will be more unimaginably precious than the materialization. Shaking off these memories, Leon came to his senses and took the clothes on a clean big stone beside him and put them on. Then he put on socks and sneakers and walked towards the town outside the mountains. It is far away from the town and it takes an ordinary adult male 1 or 2 hours to walk. This is when he has opened up a small path. Leon is different. He is only one step away from realizing the microcosm. He is no longer an ordinary person. Soon, Leon crossed the mountains and came to the town. In front of a cafe, he unlocked his locked bicycle and rode away, slowly following the road to his home. As a high-income family, the house conditions are naturally not bad. It is a single-family house, 280 square meters, 2 floors, a standard American country house, creamy white wood, 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, garage, kitchen, living room, bathroom, study, dedicated restaurant, and 6 storage rooms. There are several kinds of flowers and trees in front of the door and near the wall. The flowers are white and pink when they bloom. There is a large lawn in front of the door, and there is a garden door leading to the backyard on the right side of the door. After returning home, Leon put the bicycle in the garage, opened the door with the key, and the entrance was what caught his eye. After changing into slippers, he went to the living room along the entrance. The furniture and decoration of the whole house are very warm, and it has a very family atmosphere, which can also greatly relieve Leon's fatigue after training. 2 large Alaskan dogs have entered, wagging their tails and whimpering. "Hey, guys, did you miss me?" Leon rubbed the furry heads of the 2 Alaskans. "Woo, woo." Feeling the touch, the 2 big guys wagged their tails even more, and were so excited that they even stood up and climbed onto Leon to play. Leon walked forward. When he came to the living room, he saw his father Li Shang reading a newspaper on the sofa, and his cute sister and brother who were playing with toys with their little butts sticking out next to him. "Brother." The 2 little guys noticed Leon at once, and immediately threw away the toys in their hands, cheered and got off the sofa, and fell in front of Leon with their short legs, hugging their brother's thighs, 1 for each person. Definitely Lee Andy was slower, his body was small, and it took some time to get off the sofa. Looking at the 2 cute little guys, Leon laughed, hugged them in his arms, and worked on both sides, giving each of them a kiss. The 2 little guys also gave Leon a kiss intimately. Holding the 2 little guys, he walked to the sofa and sat down sideways, and greeted his father Li Shang. The father Li Shang was 40 years old, wearing glasses and gentle. He put down the newspaper in his hand and glanced at his eldest son. "I'm in a good mood. Have you broken through the sixth sense you mentioned?" "Almost, but it's almost there." Leon let go of his hand and let the 2 little guys curl up in his arms and play and fight. As for why his father knew that he was going to break through the sixth sense, it was because he didn't want to hide it from his parents at all. Although he has lived 2 lives, Leon still values this family. He has never been a cold person. Besides, his father and mother are not fools. When they materialized such a big golden box in the room, Leon was only 12 years old at the time and couldn't move it at all. It wasn't long before they were discovered by the two, so Leon could only explain it half-truthfully. Say that the golden armor suddenly appeared in front of him, and he needed to practice awakening microcosm to get the recognition of the golden armor, etc. As for breaking the mystery in the womb, awakening the memory of the previous life, the fantasy crystal was concealed. That is why, although the old father and mother were half believing and half doubting, they gained the trust of the two by paying a small price of fairy beans, and then strongly supported Leon to have enough time to practice. Definitely, he should go to school, but he made some small adjustments, such as going to school once every 2 weeks, and getting grades in exams. Leon, who has the memory of his previous life, and because of the continuous evolution of his life level due to cultivation, he only needs to review the knowledge once, which saves a lot of time for practice. In school, he also won the title of a mysterious man, which made many classmates curious. After all, this kind of maverick behavior has won the envy and jealousy of many peers. I really want to see the box open and you wearing the golden holy clothes. Dad Li Shang showed a gentle smile, and he was quite yearning for that picture. After all, in his understanding, his son was chosen by a certain god to become a disciple, and definitely in his mother's eyes, he became a messenger of the gods. After all, Leon once said that when he awakened the sixth sense of the microcosm, the speed of his punches and body movements reached the speed of sound, and he could throw hundreds of punches in 1 second. He could destroy nuclear reactors with his physical strength, and was immune to nuclear radiation, plague, virus, poison, and curse. He could tear the sky apart with his punches and shatter the earth with his kicks. What is the difference between that and God? Don't let them be proud of their son becoming a god. If it weren't for the secret, they would have to show off everywhere. As for the authenticity, after 2 years of training in Leon, each of them lifted up the latest model of the Chevrolet Suburban, which weighed 3.4 tons, which was purchased by the family this year. The shocking scene made Li Shang and his wife unforgettable until now. In the kitchen, Mother Amy put the cooked lunch on the living room dining table, clapped her hands and shouted, "Hey, dear, it's time for the kids to eat. Let's go, let's eat first." How to eat? Li Shang stood up, and the two little guys huddled in Leon's arms and echoed in a baby voice. Leon picked up the little guys lovingly, and the two big dogs followed behind him to the restaurant. Mother Amy, 1.7 meters tall, has maintained a good figure for many years. She looks very healthy. She has blonde hair, light blue pupils, and a mature and beautiful face. She seems very gentle on the surface, but this gentleness is limited to family members. Outside, she will show a tough side. Come and eat. Mother Amy put the dishes and chopsticks in place, walked to Leon and gave him a kiss on the cheek, then kissed the two little guys in Leon's arms, picked them up, and put them on a specially made fixed chair. The food was very rich, and even large in quantity, which was not in line with the usual appetite of a family of 5. Macaroni and cheese, cheeseburgers, smoked brisket, barbecue ribs, corn dogs, meatloaf, grilled ribs, pizza, etc. The main reason is Leon. At the beginning, he had senzu beans, which could heal injuries and fill his stomach for a few days, but the later he went, the longer the interval between taking senzu beans became, and he would not take them unless he was seriously injured. In the early stage, because his physical ability was too poor, high-intensity training could easily break his body. After he could withstand it, he needed to hone his body through brutal training to let his body adapt and self-heal. Pain and scars are all a means of tempering his will. Although senzu beans can ensure that his body is in a healthy state, it loses its meaning. Without the fullness of senzu beans, his demand for food becomes very large, so the monthly expenditure on food purchase is also a large expense. Fortunately, his parents support him unconditionally. Leon's family does not have the rule of not talking when eating or sleeping, but it is necessary to swallow food when communicating, which is basic etiquette. Definitely, the two whimpering kids at home are not considered weird, the naughty little ones are never honest when eating. The two Alaskans, Pudding and Black Panther, are different, and they focus on eating with their whole heart. After a noisy lunch, Li Shang and Leon washed the dishes, and their mother Amy looked after the little ones. After that, they came to the backyard. The little ones and Pudding Black Panther laughed and played on the lawn, and Leon and the other two sat on chairs drinking afternoon tea and chatting about the day. After the time, Li Shang and his mother Amy went to work, and the hired nanny also came to the house to take care of the little ones. In the afternoon, Leon continued to go to the waterfall deep in the mountains to exercise. This is Leon's family routine in the past year. Near the evening, Leon will return home tired. After dinner and playing with the little ones, his mother Amy took the little ones to wash, and his father Li Shang and Leon were chatting while watching the game on the sofa in the living room. Suddenly Li Shang talked about a topic that Leon should pay attention to. Sip Town. Yes, it's about 47 miles away from us. Sheriff James came to me today while on patrol and talked about that town. Li Shang repeated what Sheriff James said. It turned out that a month ago, a layer of fog filled the town of Sip. No one noticed it at first, and they just thought it was a normal phenomenon. However, as time went on, the fog became thicker and thicker, even covering the entire town. The density of fog in the town was very high. Later, basically nothing could be seen less than 1 meter away, and some strange things gradually spread in the town. The number of deaths gradually increased, unnatural deaths, and the deaths were very strange, like dried sausages, as if eroded by time. These death cases were suppressed. The local police chief investigated but did not get any results. He was reporting it. Other agencies might take over in the future. It was unknown why Sheriff James knew about the things in SIP. The other party did not say it, so Li Shang naturally did not know. If it was before, Li Shang would treat this matter as an interesting anecdote, but his son was the son of God, so who knew if there were any devils or demons in this world? After saying that, Li Shang also told Leon not to meddle in other people's business. Leon listened to it. He was not a nosy person. Having lived 2 lives, especially with the memory of his past life, he knew how deep the water in this universe was. There were a lot of monsters and demons, and he lacked a sense of security. He was now focused on breaking through the 6th sense to gain the power to protect his family and himself. The way to develop is to stay hidden. After watching the game, Leon returned to his room to wash and sleep, and forgot about the town of Nasp. Then it was day after day, and a month passed. At the moment, the sky was overcast, the drizzle was hazy, and a layer of mist appeared on the mountains. Under the curtain, Leon sat cross-legged, his hands between his legs, his left hand under his right hand, and his thumbs touched each other. The sound of the splashing sound was like thunder bombing. I don't know how long it has been, an inexplicable breath is slowly spreading, Leon's body surface, a layer of golden ripples, like a burning flame, driven by the invisible power. The passage of time around him seemed to be slowed down, and the flow traces of the waterfall falling down were also slowed down visibly. In the dark, in the sky, the dark clouds gathered, 56 stars loomed, outlining the connection like a graceful girl holding a water bottle, like a miracle. Such a strange landscape was even observed by many residents of the town far away from the mountains. People walking on the street with umbrellas stopped and looked at the sky in the distance, feeling the changes that could not be described in words. Wow, look, what is that? It's daytime, why are there stars flashing in the dark clouds? Am I seeing a ghost? I seem to see a graceful girl, very beautiful. Is that Aquarius? The residents looked at this scene in disbelief. This kind of landscape that violates natural astronomical phenomena actually appeared, which was incredible. There must be residents who understand astronomy who seem to recognize this constellation. For a time, it caused a sensation in the town and also alarmed Li Shang and his wife who were at home. Amy and Li Shang, who were patiently watching the 2 little guys interacting with their pets Pudding and Black Panther in the living room, heard the noise. But it was not outside, but at home. And the direction of the noise seemed to be. Leon, Amy and Li Shang looked at each other and said in unison, then each picked up a child and hurried down the stairs to the 2nd floor. The 2 big dogs also hurriedly followed behind them and came to Leon's room together. The door of Leon's room was open. Li Shang handed the child in his hand to Amy, and then walked in front of the room. As soon as she entered the door, she saw a shocking scene and was stunned on the spot. Seeing her husband like this, Amy, who was behind her, also walked in and was also stunned. Box. The 2 babies in her arms stretched out their little hands and shouted in a baby voice, with little stars in their big eyes. But there was no response. The 2 big dogs outside the door had already been lying on the ground and trembling. The primitive instinct of the creatures felt the vast sacredness, like a god, and the gap like a natural mode made them afraid. Right in front of Li Shang and Amy, the golden box in the corner of Leon's room was emitting a sacred and gorgeous golden glow. The graceful girl holding a water bottle on the box seemed to come alive, and they heard a sacred sound that could not be described in words. It seemed to be praying, whispering, and talking, telling an epic that was not recorded in human history. The couple seemed to feel an emotion in the box. It was excitement and expectation. Is it an illusion? No, the feeling is clear and distinct. Could it be that Leon is about to awaken his universe? Seeing the unusual movement of the golden box, Amy immediately thought of something. However, before Li Shang could speak, the brilliant and mighty sacred power suddenly burst out from the golden box, dazzling and dazzling, so that the couple and the two little babies instinctively covered their eyes. The sacred golden light rendered the whole room as if it had turned into a golden world. In such a world, Li Shang, his wife and the two little babies could not see it, until the golden light dimmed, and what appeared in front of the family again was no longer the golden box, but the sacred gold formed a girl's armor shape with a raised level. The sacred power it exuded was so mighty that it was impossible to look at it. If it were an ordinary person, he would be like Pudding and Black Panther, two big dogs, lying on the ground and shivering, but the family felt gentle. The kind of immersion in the shining golden light made Li Shang and Amy, the two little babies, feel that their bodies seemed to become more relaxed and more energetic. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. This extreme beauty and armor lines made Amy's face full of obsession, and Li Shang couldn't help but nod in agreement. This kind of beauty is a visual beauty. Every angle and every part is so perfect, so full of visual beauty. Not only that, there is also that kind of inexplicable sacred beauty. But the sacredness makes people awe-inspiring, and dare not have any blasphemous thoughts. Bang! Before the family could take a closer look, the Aquarius gold cloth in front of them suddenly turned into a golden light and sank into the wall, flying into the distance. The family hurriedly chased out the door. Seeing that the direction was towards the mountains, they immediately knew what was going on. Li Shang and Amy looked at each other, their eyes full of expectation and excitement. But then they found that the light turned around and sank into the dazzling stars in the dark clouds in the sky, which made the family discover this illogical scene. Incredible. The couple was full of admiration, and the two little babies stretched out their little hands, pointed at the sky, and shouted in a baby voice, "Beautiful stars." The vast sacred power was spreading, the bright stars were shining, the dark clouds were gathering and turning into a vortex, and the stars were embedded in the dark cloud vortex, which made the scene more sacred. Boom! Suddenly, a huge roar exploded, and a golden beam of light fell from the center of the dark cloud vortex, pointing directly to the center of the mountain range. At this moment, it also alarmed several gods and demons with incredible power. Under the waterfall on the cliff in the center of the mountain range, a dazzling golden beam of light enveloped Leon. Bathed in the golden sacred light, a gorgeous and majestic holy garment has been put on, with a mask, shoulder armor, a white double S-shaped pattern on the chest, a green gem on the collar, a thick and simple skirt armor, a light golden forearm armor, and angular leg armor. The entire holy garment is made up of multiple layers of gold. Each layer has a unique pattern and design, plus the light blue cloak behind. It highlights the mystery and power, elegance and sacred dignity. Perfect fit body. Leon knows that the golden holy garment is alive, it will fit perfectly with Leon's body changes. Even if he grows taller in the future, he will not look bloated because of the change in height. A thin layer of golden flame ignites on the surface of the holy garment, which is Leon's emerging small universe. He stands under the waterfall. At the moment, the waterfall river, the surrounding jungle trees, the ground, stones, etc. have been frozen, as if entering the ice age. Leon closed his eyes, feeling the magnificent universe in his body. Everything seemed particularly fragile in front of him. At the same time, on a cliff of a mountain a few kilometers away, an old man in a suit, a round hat and holding a civilized staff appeared at some point. He looked at the young man standing at the center of the source of the large frozen area in front of him with some doubt. Unprecedented power, sacredness, light, who could it be? The old man's eyes wandered, thinking. However, suddenly, his body stiffened, and he looked up suddenly. It turned out that the young man who was originally a few kilometers away in gorgeous and noble armor appeared in front of him at some point in the air, staring at him with sharp eyes. That magnificent and sacred breath emanated and locked onto him. Devil. The handsome young man's lips moved slightly, and he gently uttered a name that represented evil in the hearts of countless humans. His voice was pure, but it was cold. I come with good intentions, child. The old man took off his round hat gracefully and put it on his chest, saying gently. But I see the evil and greed deep in your soul. Boom! The surging and terrifying breath swept across the world, and the raging frost instantly covered all directions, and countless snowflakes and ice edges rolled like blades. The wind was raging with countless ice and snow and ice spikes, but the old man in the center was indifferent. An invisible force covered him, keeping the area around his feet dry. The soul of the devil is made up of greed and desire, but when facing the strong, he will give enough respect, unlike some hypocritical guys. The old man looked up and glanced at the golden holy clothes on Leon's body calmly. He was puzzled and cautious in his heart. He took the round hat and put it on. The civilized stick touched the ground lightly. In an instant, the entire surface of the cliff suddenly cracked, and red flames burned from the cracks, melting the frost covering the surroundings. Ice and fire, two completely different forces, collided. Your greed can't be hidden from me, devil. Leon did not hesitate and chose to take action directly. The terrifying small universe exploded and punched. The next moment, countless bright ice spikes bloomed on his fist and swept towards the devil in front of him. The latter's old face suddenly changed, holding the civilized stick in front of him. The evil, terrifying dark power suddenly erupted. Boom! The ground shook and the whole mountain range shook wildly. The whole cliff was immediately blown into pieces. The ice chips and dark power in the sky intertwined and collided. Huge amounts of wind and waves swept in all directions. The towering trees that blocked the way were all broken in half and blown away by this wave of air. The golden figure tore through the air like a beam of light, breaking through many obstacles and punching the old man. The powerful punch almost made the devil of the old man's level unable to react. Fortunately, when the battle broke out, he had already laid layers of defense for himself. But this terrifying punch still broke his layers of defense. The explosive force blew the old man away, making him fly backwards like a cannonball. I don't know how many trees and mountains were broken along the way. Finally, he slid thousands of meters on the ground of the mountain before stopping. The old man, who was originally as elegant as a gentleman, had tattered clothes, and cracks like glass appeared on the outer layer of his body, with black and red auras in the cracks. The old man's face was ugly. He didn't expect the young man to be so decisive. Before he could think, his eyes suddenly changed, and his figure immediately blurred. The next second, a golden figure fell towards him like a meteorite, and hit the ground heavily. The powerful force blew up a large area of the ground within a radius of 100 meters. The dense cracks spread wantonly, sweeping across the four directions with gravel and smoke. Leon floated above the deep pit, turned his head to look at the old man who appeared a few hundred meters away on the left, and his black pupils were unconsciously rendered light blue. The light blue cloak fluttered in the strong wind. The old man frowned and looked at Leon with a solemn expression. The whole process lasted less than 5 seconds. The violent attack, the destructive power, speed and strength of the fist made a devil of his level tremble. At the first sight, his soul projection was almost shattered. Ordinary people can't do this. This is not the power that humans should have. Whose layout is this? Such power, such a fighting method, and the sacred aura of the golden armor made him feel terrified. The old man has lived for many years, but he has never heard of or seen anything like it. We will meet again, child. The old man's old voice was transmitted, and the traces of the figure were broken more and more, and finally dissipated in his greedy eyes. Leon did not stop it. He knew very well that it was just a soul projection. Under his decisive attack, it was completely shattered, and the body must have suffered some damage, but for the devil, it only took some time. Mephisto. Leon uttered a name that made the whole hell tremble, and his expression was very calm. The demon lord who ruled hell and bore the name of Satan, the devil lord, a powerful, cunning, insidious old guy who had lived for countless years. Leon had no fear of killing one of the other's soul projections. He doesn't need to be afraid. Under the harmonious communication of the sorcerer supreme who has protected the earth for hundreds of years, the other party was forced to sign a contract. Under this contract, the other party's body cannot come to the earth. Unwilling to give up, he can only use soul projection to cause trouble on the earth secretly. After countless years of planning and lurking, he hopes to break the contract and return to the earth one day. The contract has never been a problem. The real limiter is the sorcerer supreme. He is waiting for the end of the magician's life, but it is still more than 10 or 20 years away. For the devil, this time is as short as a yawn. Unfortunately, it is enough for Leon to grow. When he breaks through the seventh sense, even if Mephisto doesn't come to him, he will break into hell and kill the other party. Leon has never been a generous person, and he will not let a father covet him all the time and do any conspiracy. He doesn't have the patience and good temper. As he was thinking, he seemed to sense something, frowned, and his figure suddenly turned into a golden beam and flew towards the sky, completely disappearing into the clouds. Not long after, a ring with sparks suddenly appeared in the air, and figures wearing coarse cloth came out one by one, holding some weapons in their hands. The leader was a slightly vicissitudes of life but very indifferent man. After they appeared, they immediately alerted and made a fighting posture at any time, and their hands were covered with a layer of golden magic shield. But when they noticed the devastated environment around them, they were shocked for a while. Huge amounts of deep pits, various tree debris that were broken in half by the air waves, and long scratches covering thousands of meters in the distance, and the frozen area. What level of battle had been experienced here? The leading man looked around, and finally walked to the edge of the deep pit with a diameter of 100 meters in front and looked down, and then glanced at the direction of hundreds of meters. His eyes flickered. Several men and women came over behind him. Caecilius, magician, what did you find? Demon's breath, a powerful demon. The magician called Caecilius said softly, and the dozen magicians behind him looked at each other. One of the male magicians said, powerful demon. A battle between two demons. No, there is only one. I don't know who the other one is, but he is very sacred and has a pure power and extreme destructive power. That demon was defeated. Caecilius said after thinking. After speaking, Caecilius looked in the direction of the town. Maybe we should go to that town to find some information. Asgard. The Asgard Square, which rules the 9 kingdoms, has a blue sky, green mountains and rivers in the distance, and perfectly combines the ultimate luxury with mountains and rivers, with the unique beauty of the divine realm. The king who dominates Asgard, Odin, wearing exquisite robes, stood in front of the stone railing at the edge of the square and looked into the distance. There was a golden eye mask covering his right eye, majestic and solemn. Behind him, heavy footsteps came. Father, Heimdall has detected an abnormally strong power fluctuation in Midgard, and there are traces of demons. I request to go to Midgard to explore. I am willing to go, Father. The loud, deep, masculine voice and the slightly magnetic voice came into Odin's ears one after another. Odin looked back and continued to admire the scenery. Let Heimdall continue to pay attention to the abnormality of Midgard, no need to investigate. Father God, do you want to question your king? Follow Oracle. The footsteps behind him faded away, and Odin's one eye flashed deep. The trajectory of history has shifted, and the future is turbid. Midgard. Odin thought of a dream he had had not long ago. In the dream, he saw one brilliant star after another, and the boys and girls wearing sacred armor one after another, using their fearless will and strength to fight against a certain threat. Good or bad, magician, what will you choose? Odin sighed leisurely. Hell is a world burning with hellfire, gathering many powerful and evil demon lords, and countless demons. Hell is a general term, and each hell lord comes from a different plane. But each plane is under the huge hell dimension framework. One of the planes is the most powerful among all the planes. It is the kingdom of the demon lord Mephisto, who bears the name of Satan. Deep in this plane, there is an ancient castle. On the central throne of the castle, the demon lord Mephisto seems to be sleeping. He has blood-red skin, a gray cloak, and a slender and sharp demon tail at the end. This is Mephisto's true body. Suddenly, Mephisto, who seemed to be sleeping, suddenly opened his eyes. But then he closed them again. A low and hoarse devil language slowly rippled throughout the castle. Unknown and powerful warrior, it's really interesting. In the small town of Sedona, residents walked out of their homes and gathered on the street to talk. The focus of the discussion was obviously the strange sights that had happened before, the astronomical phenomenon that violated the test, the beautiful Aquarius constellation above the dark clouds, the golden light column that suddenly penetrated the sky and the earth in the center of the mountain range, the violent turbulence and vibration, the roar of explosions, the raging air waves, and the sudden cold weather. All these things added up to make the residents feel uneasy. Believe me, it must be the devil who appeared. God sent the angel warriors to come down, and a battle took place in the mountains and defeated the devil. A high school student was saying to his classmates with confidence. Maybe it's aliens, just like the alien invasion in the movie. Do we have to leave the town quickly? This is a father with a wife and 2 children, who is expressing his guesses and concerns to his neighbors. It must be the warriors chosen by the gods who have appeared to save the world. Don't be ridiculous, there have never been gods or demons in this world. Aren't those mutants demons? They have evil powers, especially the guy named Magneto, who is the most wanted criminal. Ah, this is not the same concept. The residents of the town were talking, or excited, or praying, or worried, but no one noticed that a group of people dressed differently entered the town and listened carefully to the discussions of the residents of the town. The residents seemed to not see these uninvited guests. It seems normal here. One of the young female magicians looked around and didn't notice anything unusual. Another magician nodded. It's just an ordinary town. Compared to this place, I believe that there is something wrong with the other town. The guardian magician of the holy place in New York has detected a strange situation in the town called Sib. Maybe there are invaders taking action. Other magicians agreed. If they hadn't suddenly noticed the abnormal situation here, some of them might have gone to another town to investigate. Either expel or eliminate invaders from other dimensions. This was originally their duty, which they have fulfilled for thousands of years. The leading magician Caecilius has been frowning, his eyes full of doubts. Others don't feel it, but he doesn't know why. After entering the town, he feels an inexplicable depression surrounding his heart. It is an indescribable feeling, perhaps the body, or perhaps the senses warn him. After thinking for a while, Caecilius doesn't plan to take risks. As a magician who has practiced for 5 years, he has outstanding ability and stands out among a group of magicians. He is very confident in his magical attainments, but the various scenes in the mountains and the destructive atmosphere he perceives have poured a basin of cold water on him. He knew very well that no matter who those two people were, either of them could easily crush him. Caecilius cherished himself very much, or rather cherished his life more. He wanted to pursue deeper power to achieve his wishes. Before that, he didn't want to die. Let's go. We need to report this matter to the Sorcerer Supreme. This was not something he could control. Caecilius directly opened the magic portal and chose to leave with the magicians. At the moment when he and the group of magicians left, the surrounding residents still didn't notice it, except Leon. At home, Leon comforted his parents, and the two little babies with big eyes and little stars in their eyes, stretched out their little hands to try to touch the golden saint cloth. Caecilius and a group of magicians appeared in the town, and he noticed it at the first time. Those people seemed to have used some specific magic method to separate the reality, so that ordinary people could not see each other from the perspective of ordinary people. But this could not be hidden from Leon. The awakening sixth sense saint is an all-round hexagonal warrior, with extremely strong strength, speed, endurance, defense, and soul will, and even more so, even if the distance is far, he can still perceive the group of uninvited guests from the space isolated from reality in his senses. And keep paying attention. When he perceives that the other party suddenly disappears, and there is a strange ability fluctuation, he is basically sure that those people are the magicians who protect the Earth. Leon does not intend to have too much contact with this group of magicians. This universe has a specific sacred timeline, which is fixed. In the future, those so-called superheroes seem to protect the world in various ways and travel through time, but in fact, they are also a part of the history of the sacred timeline. Established history cannot be changed. But Leon broke this established history. His appearance will inevitably lead to disorder of the sacred timeline. The Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One, the King of God Odin, who controls the time gem and can see through the long river of fate, will definitely be able to detect it, but I don't know what attitude he will show. What would you do? Leon was settling down, cultivating and accumulating his small universe, and waiting for a meeting that might come. The battle in the mountains outside the town also attracted the attention of the town. The police station sent some people to the mountains to investigate the situation. They also saw the devastated scene, which was obviously destroyed by some powerful destruction. No smoke reaction was detected, and the bombing of hot weapons was ruled out. After investigation and discussion, they finally concluded that it must be a trick of an evil hiding mutant, and reported the matter, and guarded against the possibility that the evil mutant might invade the town. After a period of commotion, it turned out that everything was peaceful for a long time, and no abnormal phenomenon occurred, and the town returned to peace. However, Leon had an unexpected surprise. Because during the practice, when he was checking the fantasy crystal, he suddenly found that golden liquid appeared in the originally empty internal space. There was very little, only a few drops, but these few drops made Leon happy. For a few years, Since all the golden liquid was evaporated, this thing has never appeared again, but it has appeared again now. Leon, wearing a long-sleeved shirt and jeans, was holding his cute sister and brother who were sleeping in his arms, sitting on a chair in the backyard garden, thinking. At his feet, two big dogs were lying down with their eyes closed, shaking their big tails from time to time, looking very leisurely. Is it because I broke through the microcosm? No, it shouldn't be this reason. Could it be that I came into contact with Mephisto, the key figure in this universe? Changed my fate, absorbed some kind of power. This is possible. Maybe it was because I broke Mephisto's soul projection and was related to the soul. Or other reasons. Leon's mind kept passing through one guess after another, and finally settled on two possibilities. The former was very simple, and this attempt only required contacting a few people. If it was the latter, then try them one by one. The fantasy crystal was related to his future growth, and Leon had to figure out the reason for the appearance of this golden liquid. Sip Town. Leon thought of that town. In his senses, the evil power in the direction of that town was getting stronger and stronger, and even had a tendency to spread. Whether it was to prevent that thing from spreading to the town where he was, or to verify his idea, he had to go there now. Boom. The fog was thick, and the terrible red lightning was raging. A fierce battle was breaking out in the town covered by fog. One after another, the red lightning struck the ugly and terrifying monsters, but after crushing those monsters, more tall and terrifying monsters rushed over. Santa, be careful behind. There are more monsters over there. Why are there more and more of them? Be careful, magic with too little power is useless against those things. A series of hurried shouts came, and more than a dozen magicians were seen constantly casting various magics to repel the terrifying huge monsters rushing from all directions. The original houses around them collapsed into ruins because of the battle and the trampling of monsters. Weeping could be vaguely heard from the houses far away in the town. Among these magicians, Caecilius, who released the red lightning and the Bossett thunder magic, smashed several monsters. He took advantage of this opportunity to scan some of the other magicians who were still fighting in the distance, as well as the endless number of terrifying monsters in the fog, and his face looked a little ugly. Not far away, a middle-aged white magician released golden magic energy to penetrate the huge monster that tried to attack him. Seeing that the other magicians were unable to do so, he quickly made hand seals with both hands, opened his arms, and released a large-scale defensive magic. Seraphim Shield. The huge magic shield with golden energy magic lines formed like a bowl covered all the magicians and hindered the attacks of the monsters. Seeing this, the other magicians immediately cast the Seraphim Shield to support the magic shield. Taking advantage of this gap, the middle-aged white magician shouted to Caecilius, "Something is wrong, Caecilius magician, these monsters are getting more and more. Is there a crack in this town?" Cracks are not a particularly common phenomenon, a crack in the barrier between this universe and other dimensional universes. It may be man-made or natural, but the latter is rare and basically does not appear. Man-made means that some evil gods and monsters will forcibly tear the barriers between dimensions and create cracks in some way to invade the Earth. This phenomenon is very common, but due to the huge barrier formed by the three magician holy places on the Earth, this kind of invaders has been greatly reduced, but it will not be eliminated. Is there such a crack here? Maybe, but this fog can greatly interfere with us. It is difficult to find the crack and repair it. We can't do it with our ability. We need support. Caecilius answered calmly. I can feel that the residents in the town are disappearing one by one. Caecilius magician, we have to hurry, the white magician said hurriedly. There were more and more monsters besieging the magic shield. They could not hold on, let alone repair the cracks. But before he finished speaking, an inhuman and terrifying roar shook the whole town. The residents who were hiding and trembling in the town could not help but scream in despair and fear. Boom! Heavy huge amounts of footsteps came, and every footstep made the earth shake violently. All the magicians subconsciously looked in that direction, and their eyes suddenly widened. What kind of huge amounts of monster is that? It has a body that looks like an arthropod, with more than a dozen legs like spiders but even bigger, and an ugly and terrifying head with more than a dozen huge eyeballs. The magicians have faced bigger huge amounts of monsters over the years, but this monster is even more powerful. I saw a huge amounts of spider legs slam down and hit the magic shield. Caecilius magician couldn't hold his calm face, and quickly released the Seraphim Shield magic, but it was a pity. In just one move, huge amounts of power penetrated the large magic shield, smashing the two unlucky magicians into meat paste, and the air wave blew away the surrounding magicians. Then came the endless monsters rushing up, ready to tear these magicians into pieces. At the moment when all the magicians were desperate, all the monsters that had rushed forward, including the huge amounts of 100 meters, stopped and raised their heads to look at the sky. The magicians were stunned for a moment, and subconsciously looked in the direction of their sight, but they only saw the thick fog and a touch of gold. The figure wrapped in golden flames like a meteorite became clearer and clearer. The huge pressure from top to bottom made both the monsters and the magicians feel like they were carrying a mountain and were crushed on the ground. Boom! With a roar, the figure fell and hit the body of the 100-meter-high monster directly. With a wail, the huge body of the monster shattered instantly, and blood and meat splashed all over the sky. The huge impact of the fall lifted all the magicians and monsters around. The sky was filled with dust and smoke. The magicians who were lifted up ignored the pain in their bodies. The qualities they had developed from fighting for many years made them stand up quickly, release the magic shield Ragador ring with both hands, and take a defensive posture. But then the scene made the magicians, including Caecilius, look in disbelief. In the dense dust, they saw a black-haired boy wearing gorgeous golden armor and a light blue cloak, walking out of the dust with easy steps. His upright body and handsome face made him look like a god walking in the world, noble, mysterious, and sacred. All filth and dirt seemed unable to approach him. The monsters that were blown away seemed to be afraid of this sacredness, crawling on the ground, not daring to move. The magicians felt their souls trembling and shaking, even Caecilius. Everyone felt that this was a kind of pressure from the depths of the soul, from the most primitive level of life. Tap, tap, tap. The golden boots stepped on the ground and made a crisp sound, like the beating of a drum, full of rhythm and melody, and seemed to resonate with their hearts. Finally, he walked to the center and stopped about 10 meters away from the magicians. The boy's eyes, like a god, looked over, which made the magicians feel nervous. A clean and pure boy's voice came to their ears. "It seems that I am a little late." "What a pity." He said it with regret and glanced at the two magicians who died in the distance because of the huge monster. The man who came was Leon. No matter what the reason, being able to silently dedicate oneself, regardless of life and safety, to fight against evil and protect this planet is worthy of respect. Leon, who has reached the sixth sense, has the ability of flight. The starting speed is the speed of sound. It will be faster with the blessing of the Gold Saint. On the way here, the magicians who suddenly went to the town to investigate had already started a battle with the monsters. He sensed this and accelerated the speed of flight, but it was still a step slower. Leon's words with regret let the magicians know that he was a friend, not an enemy, and Caecilius, who was thinking sinisterly, was relieved. The middle-aged white magician glanced at Caecilius, who was silent and had a twinkling look in his eyes, removed the magic shield, the ring of Ragador, made a magician salute, and spoke first. "Please don't worry about the responsibility. They all sacrificed themselves for protection. When we are called magicians, we are ready. I am the magician from Kamar Taj, Onder Thomas. Thank you very much for saving us." He glanced at the monsters crawling on the ground and trembling around him, and was even more surprised and shocked. He could suppress these powerful monsters with just his breath. How powerful is this boy in front of him? "Nice to meet you, Onder Magician." Leon nodded, then looked around, and the mist that dissipated because of his arrival, but gathered again, and frowned. Disgusting thing. Boom! A terrifying breath suddenly broke out, and a terrifying wind burst out from itself, raging in all directions. Under the pressure of this powerful breath, the ugly bodies of the crawling monsters around were instantly crushed into a ball. The dazzling golden holy light bloomed, like a sun burning with flames, and the sacred breath completely purified the fog covering the town. The dark clouds in the sky were also blown away, and the sun shone down. The magicians more than 10 meters away instinctively used their arms to block the dazzling golden holy light. When the holy light dissipated, they put down their hands and found that under such a terrible breath and pressure, they were actually unharmed, and even their bodies were not blown. What kind of control is this? As an Onder magician with a good reserve of magic knowledge and many years of practical experience, Caecilius, who has a unique ability and a high IQ, immediately realized this and couldn't help but secretly take a breath. Strength is a very general description, but many things have similarities, such as the control of strength. The same is true for magic. At the beginning of learning magic, magicians emphasize the use and control of magic, especially the control. The boy in front of him can burst out power to destroy all monsters around him and blow away the fog and clouds without hurting them. This kind of control over power is incredible. The two of them were filled with a huge wave of emotions, especially Caecilius, who looked at the boy in front of him with a fiery look in his eyes. Onder magician, Caecilius magician, I see a crack. Another magician suddenly exclaimed and pointed to the area full of ruins in the distance. Everyone looked subconsciously and saw a huge crack with a diameter of about 50 meters and a height of more than 200 meters, emitting an ominous purple light. Go! Onder magician greeted Leon and ran towards the huge crack with the other magicians. Leon stood in place and scanned the town with a powerful perception to find that there were still many buried residents under the ruins. His eyes moved, and the majestic invisible psychokinesis spread instantly, moving all the ruins and wooden boards away, and then moving the residents under them to the open ground. Over there, Onder magician, Caecilius and a group of magicians stood in a row, with serious expressions, and their hands carved complex handprints, and finally slapped forward. The surging magic energy outlined a series of mysterious golden threads. The combined magic energy poured into the edge of the crack, and the torn crack slowly healed. However, an ancient, evil roar came from the other side of the crack, and a powerful purple energy suddenly broke through the crack and pointed directly at the magicians. Onder, Caecilius and other magicians turned pale immediately, watching the purple energy beam coming, feeling the last moment of death, and time seemed to slow down. But before they entered the revolving lantern, a thunderous explosion sounded in their ears. Go back to your world. Boom! In a flash, Leon's figure appeared in front of him as if he had teleported, clenching his fist with a golden glove and punching the terrifying purple energy beam that was attacking, bursting and tangled in the airflow, and the attacking purple energy was actually beaten back by this airflow. The brilliant purple energy rolled back into the crack, and the raging wind raged. Leon stood there, his black hair and light blue cape dancing wildly. Roar! There came an angry, ancient and painful roar. The magicians who had escaped death, although full of shock and fear, still stood there firmly, releasing magic to gradually repair the huge crack. And Leon stood in front of the crack, motionless, like a magic needle that stabilized the sea, making the magicians feel an unprecedented sense of security. Soon, the hundreds of meters of cracks gradually healed, and there was nothing in front of them. After solving the cracks, the magicians stopped the magic. Everyone was panting, their hearts kept beating, and the horror between life and death brought excitement, which made people's adrenaline soar. Leon turned around, glanced at the residents who were looking over secretly in the distance, and then looked at the magicians. His eyes moved slightly, a smile flashed in his eyes, and he nodded his chin lightly. Goodbye, magicians. Without much nonsense, Leon's figure turned into a dazzling golden beam and rushed into the sky, and soon disappeared completely. Well, it's really straightforward. Onder, who had just raised his hand to say something, had no choice but to put it down. He's really cool. A younger female magician looked up and couldn't help but sigh. It must be said that this experience may be unforgettable for her. The boy who was like a god walking on earth, elegant and noble, was deeply engraved in her mind. I didn't expect there are such people on earth. It's incredible. And that set of golden armor, I can feel that kind of incomparable sacredness and dignity. Maybe we need to report this to Sorcerer Supreme. Well, clean up the monster corpses and take the remains of Andy Magician and Snow Magician back. Caecilius said, lowering his eyelids to hide the burning heat in his eyes. Yes, Caecilius Magician. Soon, the magicians cleaned up the monster corpses, took away the remains of their companions, opened the teleportation magic door and returned, and everything quietly calmed down. After a long time, the hiding residents saw the sun again, carefully opened the cover, walked to the street, and bathed in the sun. The survivors finally showed a happy smile on their faces. Look at the street, there are so many people. Hey, they are still alive, come and help. Why are they on the street? Look, there is a lot of dust and scars on their faces and bodies. Are they crushed by the collapse of buildings? But why are they here again? Who dug them out? The surviving residents talked about it while helping the people lying on the street. But soon, another group of people stood up. A young blonde boy with acne on his face shouted excitedly, I saw it, I saw God. James, don't talk nonsense. I'm not talking nonsense. I saw the God in golden armor. He saved all of us. He led his warriors, or maybe magician. They killed those monsters and saved us. The boy called James shouted in dissatisfaction in the face of doubts. Without waiting for others to refute, someone else shouted, "James is right. I also saw the god in golden armor. He solved all the monsters and eliminated a terrifying thing. I also heard the angry roar of a devil-like guy. I heard it too. I believe James." Hearing the residents standing up one after another, the other survivors looked at each other. After the town experienced the invasion of fog and monsters, and countless residents were killed, they also believed that there were demons in this world. Otherwise, how did those monsters appear? Then is the god in golden armor that James and others saw and said, "Is it true?" They were shaken, and after James and other survivors who witnessed the spectacular scene, the remaining survivors also firmly believed that it was God who saved them. But who was that God? It was Leon. It was all his instigation. "You have to believe me, dear." A father swore on the surface, but in fact he was very guilty. After all, out of curiosity, he let his son fly around in the sky with psychokinesis, which caused extreme dissatisfaction or jealousy from a mother. She had never tried that feeling. Leon walked to the living room at the moment, took out a can of Coke from the refrigerator, opened it and took a sip, glanced at his father who was scolded by his mother, and the corner of his mouth curled up. "Ha, I don't know who begged me so hard, so I won't take you to play the game of heaven next time." Dad Li Shang was immediately speechless, his face was bitter, and his mother glared at Leon who was gloating. "Leon, okay, my fault." Leon raised his hands in surrender, then turned around and went upstairs to his room. He didn't want to watch his parents showing off their love in various ways. The child was still young and couldn't eat it. Leon returned to the room, sat in front of the computer desk, put the can of Coke on the desk, tapped the keyboard a few times, and the bloggers on the blog posted what they saw and heard on the computer screen. He flipped through it casually, read 10 lines at a glance, and mastered all the information clearly. After turning off the computer, he drank the Coke, lay on the bed, and focused on the fantasy crystal. The thin layer of flowing golden liquid was his harvest in the town of SPU. But unlike what he had imagined before, when he went to the town of SPU, whether he was contacting magicians or killing monsters, he carefully observed the fantasy crystal, but no golden liquid appeared. On the contrary, he noticed that after he and the magicians were seen fighting by some residents, some fragmented power appeared and gathered from the invisible bodies of these residents, and finally suddenly disappeared out of thin air, and the golden liquid in the crystal increased. Leon knew that the invisible power was the key point for the appearance of the golden liquid. Faith, or the collection of some strong emotions. Leon thought the former was more likely, and the golden liquid in the fantasy crystal was still accumulating, but it was very little. Is this to force others to show their holiness? Develop believers? Leon fell into deep thought. It seems that his plan needs to be changed. It is the simplest to show one's power in front of others, but it is also full of uncertainties. Because of the existence of the Sorcerer Supreme and the Magician Holy Place, there are invasions on Earth, but not many. Even if he shows his power in a certain area and defeats the invaders, the news and public opinion will be quickly controlled. Or he can just go the villain's way and create a world-famous terrorist incident to show his power, like Magneto. But this option is directly rejected, and he has never even thought about it. This is not the best and most cost-effective option. Then, use the simplest way to directly occupy a small country to develop and cultivate believers and harvest faith. Leon did not plan to take it slowly. Since he wanted to develop believers, there was nothing simpler than directly occupying a country. Compared with the dispersed population of a large country, a small country with a city is more suitable for cultivating and developing believers. Harvest faith in a small country first, accumulate golden liquid, and then find and cultivate a group of warriors. His ultimate goal is not the Earth. The population of the Earth is small. He wants to become a god himself, and he also needs a group of powerful subordinates. Based on this, he will create a kingdom of God and slowly reach out to other galaxies, races, and even other dimensions. He immediately considered 2 places, Kosovia and Madripoor. The former is an Eastern European country with a population of only 2 million, but the city is controlled by Hydra. The latter is located in Southeast Asia, southwest of Singapore, south of the Strait of Malacca in Indonesia, close to the most important port in Asia, making it a lawless haven for smugglers, secret societies and warlords, and also a refuge for pirates. Definitely under the control of Hydra. After Hydra was destroyed after World War II, a large number of remnants licked their wounds and continued to parasitize on this planet and grow stronger. Hydra, for Leon now, is not worth mentioning at all. These two countries are called countries, but they are actually just cities. The population of Madripoor is only 4 million now. Theocracy. Leon smiled lightly. Since it is destined to stir up waves, let's just play it bigger. His pupils were rendered with a touch of light blue. A mountain range in Siberia was covered with heavy snow, which buried the surroundings of the mountain range. On the edge of one of the cliffs, the skyline in the distance. Bang! A figure tore through the sky and suddenly fell down. When it was about to hit the ground, it was as light as a feather and floated down. Found it. There was a rock mass on the edge of the cliff, and in front of it was an iron door that was rusted and covered with frost. He raised his head slightly and took a glance, revealing a handsome face. It was Leon. Although the temperature was low at the moment, he was only wearing a black leather jacket and a white t-shirt and jeans. The low temperature would not affect his body. He walked towards the iron gate, and a ring with sparks suddenly appeared in front of him. The other side was pitch black, which turned out to be the other side of the iron gate. Leon walked in without stopping, and the ring with sparks disappeared. This turned out to be the teleportation magic of magicians. Entering the base, Leon was very satisfied with this magic. Magic is a kind of idealistic power, but it does have many unique features, especially teleportation magic, which can even cross the barriers between dimensions and teleport. Teleportation magic requires an anchor point. No matter what this anchor point is, as long as it exists, no matter how far the distance is, you can open the portal and teleport. With Leon's current level of sixth sense, this teleportation magic is quite practical. He was able to learn it because he read Caecilius' memory of learning magic in the town of Spu. The source of magic is to borrow the magic energy of the magic dimension, because these people do not have this energy. But Leon has it, so a simple improvement omits the process of absorbing the magic dimension, and he can open it through his own microcosm. In fact, after the sixth sense, the saints can have many super abilities, such as manipulating elements, predicting the future, crushing and controlling atoms, flying, psychokinesis, reading minds, illusions, mind control, intuition, etc. As the sixth sense is enhanced, the super abilities mastered will increase, and the life level will gradually approach the seventh sense, and even have thousands of super abilities, because at that time the microcosm is so huge that it can withstand the consumption generated by the use of thousands of super abilities. This is why the saints can be called hexagonal warriors. Definitely, in general, the fighting style of the saints will be more concise and clear, and there may be super abilities that are focused on, but they are rarely used directly in actual combat, because this level of combat is not necessary at all. Leon stepped into the base, and his super senses scanned the entire base. He also came inside and found the purpose of his trip. This is a very open and wide space, with many instruments and equipment placed inside. In the front, there are 5 closed cabins that emit freezing fog with dim lights throughout the base. On the recliners inside, there are 5 people who have opened their eyes but have been frozen. This used to be the Hydra base for training winter soldiers and super soldiers, and the super serum came from Tony Stark's father Howard. The winter soldier killed Howard and his wife and took the only 5 bags of super soldier's gene serum from the other car. The experiment was very successful. The 5 carefully trained and brainwashed Hydra elite soldiers injected with super soldier's gene serum were successfully strengthened, but what brought them was unstable personality, which caused riots. In addition, for some reasons, Hydra decided to freeze the 5 super soldiers, and the Hydra base was abandoned. There is an automatic nuclear power circulation system inside the base, and other power is closed in the base, so the cooling supply of super soldiers can be maintained for decades. In the future, Iron Man and Captain America Steve Rogers and Bucky will once again start a split battle. Under the training of Hydra, the 5 super soldiers are proficient in the languages of 30 countries and have mastered assassination, stealth and other skills. It can be said that if they are given enough time, they can quickly destroy a country. In order to find this place, he spent a long time wandering in the Siberian area and used his own mental psychokinesis scan to find it. Leon came to the operating table in front of him and started the thawing mode. The thawing mode did not last long. Soon, the 5 super soldiers slowly opened their eyes, and the closed cabin door opened. At first, they flashed confusion in their eyes, and then they saw Leon outside the closed cabin. The 5 super soldiers stood up, quickly pulled out the delivery tube, and rushed out of the closed cabin like a cheetah to launch an attack. However, just after stepping out of the closed cabin, Leon's mouth corners curved, and a surging and terrifying breath broke out. Bang, 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 bang. In an instant, the 5 super soldiers fell to their knees under the suppression of this terrible aura, but the brainwashed soldiers had only one idea: to kill the man in front of them. Unfortunately, the huge difference in life levels made it impossible for them to break free from the suppression no matter how hard they struggled. Leon's eyes were painted with light blue light, and mind control was activated. He forcibly washed away the marks of the super soldiers after brainwashing, and left his spiritual mark in an instant. The 5 super soldiers who were struggling frantically stopped struggling, and the terrible aura dissipated and became calm again, looking at the boy in front of them with fanaticism. Readapt to learning this society, Ivan Drakov, he is the head of the intelligence and espionage department, find him. Yes, master, Leon thought. A portal with sparks suddenly opened beside him, and on the other side was an unmanned alley in Omsk, the capital of Omsk Oblast in southwestern Siberia. The 5 super soldiers stepped into the portal one by one. Leon doesn't need to worry about the follow-up. He left his contact information in the brains of these 5 super soldiers. When they find the target, they will contact him directly. At night, the cold wind blows. In front of the windowsill of an office in an old castle base in Suzdal, Western Russia, Drakov holds a Kabirin cigarette and silently looks at the scenery outside the window. Drakov has not been in a good mood in the past 2 years. 2 years ago, an ace spy he carefully trained defected to a mysterious organization and rebelled against him, broke into the Red House base and destroyed it. He was in danger in the explosion, and even his daughter was disfigured and seriously injured. He tracked down the traces of the traitor, but the results obtained in the past 2 years frightened him. Because he tracked down various clues, this organization is very large, so large that when the spies he trained tracked down some information and wanted to continue to dig deeper, they were ruthlessly wiped out. Drakov decisively cut off his own trail and hid himself in the Red Room underground. In addition, his base and industry were all in Great Russia, so the huge tentacles could not penetrate deep into it, allowing his concealment plan to succeed. In 2 years, he rebuilt the Red Room base and searched for a large number of orphans to continue to train his spies. Not only that, he had lost his sense of security and had begun to study neuropheromones. The rebellion incident made him realize that brainwashing was not stable, and only a strong control method such as neuropheromones was the safest. Fortunately, the research on neuropheromones has yielded results, which made Drakov feel that this was the only good news in the past 2 years. Drakov puffed out smoke, and the cigarette butt was glowing with a hot red light, and his brain was thinking about another great plan. However, while he was thinking, Drakov suddenly felt a palpitation, which woke him up from his thinking. When he came back to his senses, he felt that the atmosphere seemed a little uneasy, and unconsciously, a drop of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. As the head of the Red Room spy, this atmosphere has made him aware of the danger, but where does the danger come from? The unknown is what scares people the most. The fear and anger in the heart of General Drakov, who is in a high position, are beyond description. His forehead is also bulging with blue veins due to the rapid change of his inner emotions, which is very hideous. Chapter 11. There was a knock on the door behind him. In this dead silence, it was more like the death god knocking on the door. Drakov's heart suddenly beat, and the quality of not being surprised by honor or disgrace that the intelligence department had developed over the years had disappeared. At this moment, he was afraid and praying. But the sound of the door opening behind him completely broke his thoughts. Because he knew very well that no one dared to open the door and enter the office without his permission. "Why don't you turn around?" The pure voice of the young man echoed in his ears, and it seemed that the image of the owner of the voice could be imagined just by hearing the voice. But this added to Drakov's fear. He didn't dare not do it, because although the tone was very calm, it contained an irresistible will, and his body was out of control. His body was stiff as if rusted, and he turned around slowly and stiffly. At the other end of the desk, sat a very handsome boy, wearing an ordinary black jacket and jeans, with black hair, and his black gem-like pupils seemed to be connected to the boundless abyss. Behind him stood 5 strong men and women in combat uniforms with expressionless faces. "You, shish." Drakov was about to speak, but the boy raised his index finger to his lips and shushed him, making him swallow the next words back into his stomach. Just by looking into the boy's eyes, Drakov's mind and body seemed to no longer belong to him. That kind of silent fear completely overwhelmed Drakov. Looking at the fear and panic in the eyes of General Drakev, who was in a high position and had billions of wealth, Leon picked up a document on the desk in front of him, which showed the name of the Sky Headquarters base plan. After flipping through the documents, Leon put down the document and looked at Drakev. Very good plan. It seems that you have absorbed a large number of scientists and engineers. Let me see. Wow, there are more than 500 scientists, and you are one of the biggest beneficiaries in secret when your country disintegrates. Leon read Drakev's memory and witnessed how this old guy used his power and wealth to earn his current assets after years of accumulation. Compared to arms dealer groups such as Stark and Hammer, and Locks and Company, Drakev is just an ant, but he is already one of the world's top richest people, and now he continues to use the spies he has cultivated to earn more money and power through lurking, assassination, seduction, etc. This process is extremely bloody. Just take the Red Room, a spy agency, for example. Every year, countless female orphans are captured and sent to the Red Room for inhuman training. In the end, less than 5% survive, and the rest are ruthlessly cleaned up. In each class, only the most powerful Black Widow agent can graduate, and the graduation ceremony is an inhumane sterilization operation, removing the uterus, making women incomplete. The numbers accumulated over the years have exceeded 3 digits. Leon has never felt that he is such a noble person. Many things will prioritize his own interests, but with 9 years of compulsory education in his previous life and this life, he also has his own bottom line and morality. If he doesn't know, he can ignore it, but since he knows and finds it, he will not be stingy to let this scum atone in the most painful way. Before he accepts the punishment, Leon decides to let Drakev witness the kingdom he built with his own hands being plundered bit by bit. Then suffer in the most cruel days of pain and punishment. Abandon all your ongoing plans and call all scientists. I need their knowledge. Eliminate the unstable factors. Leon gave instructions and asked the 5 super soldiers behind him to help Drakev. Drakev, who was under mind control, will faithfully execute all of Leon's orders. As for the Red Room, a completely useless institution, it will be temporarily retained. The training of Black Widows will be suspended. They will be packed away in the future. The basic condition for the training of Black Widows is orphans, without families or relatives. Even if they have relatives, they will either die naturally or be secretly eliminated by the Red Room. Whether it is a Black Widow that has been brainwashed to complete multiple missions or a Black Widow that is still in training, Leon has completely regarded it as a candidate for future training. For these Black Widows or Black Widow cubs, it is a turning point in fate. Soon, under Drakev's orders, the huge industry under his command began to operate. With the help of 5 super soldiers such as Joseph, the unstable factors of Drakev were gradually eliminated. Those scientists were also called together and went to another test base in Drakev. The experimental project was 5 super soldiers. Leon did not reject technology. On the contrary, the advantages of technology were also obvious. Combination was the kingly way. Super Soldier Gene Serum was one of the most outstanding gene technologies. It could optimize human physical fitness and enhance physical functions from the genetic level. It was a comprehensive strengthening, strength, resistance to blows, endurance, explosive power, self-healing, flexibility, and brain strengthening, such as reaction, learning, memory, etc. Whether it was for the Legion soldiers to be established in the future, or for the father, mother, and younger brothers and sisters at home. He had to master this thing. As for the side effects, it could be optimized and improved. The side effects of the Zora version of Dr. Erskine and Red Skull were completely eliminated by the Nagel version of Serum in 2024. And Leon also met with a person, a woman. Her name is Melina Voziov. She has gone through 4 Red House training programs and performed various secret missions. At the same time, she has a high IQ and soon became the chief scientist recognized by the Red House. Under Drakev's instruction, she is developing a neuropheromone to completely control Black Widow, which is a hidden danger that Drakev believes after the explosion in Budapest and must be eliminated. It was a sunny day. On the open-air stands of Drakev Castle, Melina, who was beautiful and mature, saw the mysterious boy who was too young and drinking tea in front of her. Then she looked at Drakev who was kneeling on the ground. Melina was puzzled and surprised. As a top spy, she had a very keen sense of smell in some aspects. The series of changes in the Red House in the past few days naturally could not be hidden from her, and all the actions of the Red House surprised her, and she even stopped the project she was developing. At Drakev's instruction, she came to the castle. Now she saw this weird scene. A strange Asian boy who had never seen him before, Drakev, the head of the Red House, knelt beside him with a respectful and fanatical expression. Melina was different from other Black Widows. She had a sense of self. She hated the Red House and Drakev. She couldn't bear the fate of the Black Widows in the Red House because she knew very well that those children were embarking on the painful and tormenting road she had walked before. What made her even more miserable was that she couldn't break free from Drakev's control. She had thought about resisting countless times, but she knew that Drakev's power was too great and the only result of her resistance would be death. For this reason, she had to develop neuropheromones for him at his instruction to control and brainwash those children. Let her become an indirect perpetrator. In her heart, she was afraid of Drakev and hated Drakev, but now, she saw Drakev kneeling on the ground, his fat body shaking because of kneeling for a long time but not daring to move, and her heart was full of joy. At the same time, she also showed fear, confusion and gratitude to the teenager who did all this, but it was well concealed. Disguise has become your instinct, Ms. Melina. Leon put down the teacup, stood up, and walked in front of Melina. It must be said that this top spy is only 30 years old now, in the prime of life. Whether it is temperament, figure, or charming appearance, they are all her capital and weapon. Generally, most teenagers who are already 16 and almost 17 cannot refuse the charm of such a mature and beautiful woman. Leon is no exception. He is also a young man. He is not physically and mentally indifferent. It is just that his will tempered for many years has given him strong self-control. Ask your questions and I can give you the answers. What do you need me to do? Melina's light brown eyes moved slightly, and then she said softly. Leon laughed dumbly. This woman's caution and disguise have been engraved in her bones, but he did not point it out, but said directly, I need someone to help me complete a plan. Your ability and brain are both what I value. I will give everything to serve you, sir. Melina offered her loyalty without hesitation. She could control Drakev. Age and common sense were no longer useful. She only had to remember that this handsome and gentle boy was mysterious, noble and unknown, which was the most terrifying. I like your intelligence and prudence. Leon praised, and then told her all his plans without reservation, which made Melina, who was a scheming person, lose control of her expression and stared at the boy with wide eyes. A huge wave of emotion was stirred up in her heart. She didn't expect that this boy who looked harmless on the outside was actually going to steal and occupy a country directly. Even if that country only had one city, it would have a population of several million. But if you think about it carefully, it is not impossible, and the success rate of execution is very high. 5 super soldiers with super soldier gene serum and proficient in the languages of 30 countries developed serum without side effects through these super soldiers. Having serum is equivalent to having a super soldier legion. What's more, there are quite a few graduated Black Widows, and these Black Widows are proficient in many complicated skills. If they are injected with serum, she can't even imagine how terrible the destructive power of such a strengthening version of Black Widow Legion will be. Stealing a small country is not a problem. Just when Melina thought that the boy in front of her was a person with greater ambitions than Drakev, Leon seemed to see through her thoughts. Ms. Melina, do you believe that there are gods in this world? Melina's beautiful eyebrows moved slightly. Some of your ambitions and what I want to do are too small. Ordinary people have their own inherent cognition, especially those who grew up in modern society. Even if Leon showed great power, she might think that it was the power possessed by the mutant gene mutation. So he didn't explain too much. Leon only needed the other party to complete what he wanted to do, and also gave the other party what he had always wanted in his heart. When you complete the task, I will make you a complete woman again. As soon as these words came out, Melina's eyes widened suddenly. It was another sunny day in the town of Sip. But under the bright sunshine, there was an indelible sadness and haze. A large part of the houses and equipment in the town were destroyed. This strange disaster left more than 4,000 people in the town dead, and most of them were even dead. Only less than 2,000 people survived. The survivors recalled the days when they hid in fear under the fog every day and night, and saw one familiar friend and family member after another being captured by those horrible and ugly monsters, leaving behind the monsters, excited roars, screams and chewing sounds. Those scenes became a complete nightmare. Definitely, some of them peeked at the gods in golden armor at the beginning, showing their powerful strength, majesty, holiness, and dignity which were engraved in their minds. In the darkness and despair, they became their inner hope and engraved into the depths of their souls. They also became the first believers, even if they didn't know who the god they worshipped was. They spread the word and drew the appearance of the gods. Coincidentally, other residents who still feared darkness and monsters found comfort and spiritual support. Soon, the survivors of the whole town became believers of the unknown god. Barton, Natasha Romanoff, and Phil Coulson are now having a headache. The three of them are from an extremely mysterious department, the full name of which is the Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau. It is a special agency dedicated to handling various strange events. The three are elite agents of this department. The abnormal situation in the town of Sip has attracted the attention of the department. So they were sent here by Director Nick Fury to investigate. In addition to the three of them, there are also a group of agents from the Action and Science departments. After the on-site inspection and questioning, they gathered together and summarized the results of the investigation, which gave them a headache. Are there supernatural events on the Earth? Definitely. Their department investigates and handles a lot of these cases every year. Some supernatural creatures in movies, TV series, and ghost novels, such as Blood Clan, werewolves, dark creatures, etc., also exist. It's just that under the iron fist of human social physics, they are completely hidden, or simply integrated into the human group. Natasha Romanoff has not been in the department for many years, and has handled several such cases, but basically dispatched the Special Operations Team, which was established to deal with these dark creatures. This time was originally thought to be similar to the past. However, the fog, monsters, the final attack, the boy in golden armor, and the magician in coarse cloth robes, the cracks hundreds of meters high emitting purple ominous halos, inhuman roars, terrible energy beams, etc. These descriptions exceeded the expectations of the three people, but there were no monster bodies left at the scene or even a drop of blood. The agents of the science department also gave a preliminary test report. Different energy indexes left behind. Yes, there are at least 3 different energy indexes, but our current instruments and equipment cannot restore them. The agent of the science department was a little helpless, and then he became excited, but according to the description of the residents, I think the crack with purple light for hundreds of meters is very likely to be an intersection with another space. Those monsters should have invaded the town through this space intersection, but those mysterious people didn't know how to close the intersection. The theoretical viewpoints of parallel universe and time and space are just speculations in the scientific community, without substantial evidence, but he has conducted an investigation today, and he believes that this theoretical viewpoint is likely to be true. Once this discovery is released or even has substantial evidence, he will be remembered in the history of the scientific community and gain endless fame and fortune. He definitely understands that this is impossible. First of all, even if there is a description from the residents, it is still not substantial evidence, and even if it is confirmed, according to the confidentiality regulations of the department, he and all the agents on the scene must sign the highest confidentiality regulations, and the data files of the investigation will be sealed as top secret by the director. Those residents will be ordered to keep their mouths shut and pay close attention. Anyone who has the possibility of spreading the news will be arrested on the spot. Agent Phil Coulson. These are the sketches drawn by the artists in the artist department based on the descriptions of all the residents who witnessed the incident. Over there, an agent from the action team came over and handed Phil Coulson a few stacks of sketches. Phil Coulson, Barton and Natasha Romanoff looked at each other and began to watch. The artist who was recruited by the Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau must have a solid foundation. In addition to being proficient in art skills, painting skills, simulation imagination, and mastering psychology, criminology, etc., they are definitely the world's top auxiliary talents. In their department, there are more than a dozen top artists and dozens of high-level artists in the auxiliary department. The department needs to spend a lot of money every year to maintain, and its artist ability can be imagined. On the special drawing paper, its vivid degree can be seen. In the paintings, the lifelike, horrible and ugly monsters, ferocious teeth, scale-like shells, spikes, and other monsters similar to octopus tentacles with barbs, etc., all make people feel cold at a glance. But there are only a few paintings that are really worth the attention of the three people. In the first painting, a handsome boy standing in the sun, wearing noble and gorgeous golden armor, standing in the wreckage of monster corpses, and those magicians wearing coarse cloth robes and holding magic shields are looking at each other more than 10 meters apart. Because the residents who were peeping were too far away, they could not directly describe the boy's appearance. They just said that they vaguely saw a general description of a very handsome appearance, and the same was true for the magicians. So much so that the prompt information on the drawing board specifically marked this point. In another painting, a huge crack with an ominous purple halo of hundreds of meters, the halo flows and rotates, as if it can swallow people at any time. More than a dozen magicians raised their hands, and released energy from the magic circle on their palms to pour into the pattern in the crack. Obviously, as previously speculated, the magicians seemed to close the crack in some way. The truly important third painting consists of 4 scenes, and 4 pictures are drawn. In the first scene, the magicians fought hard to close the crack, but a terrifying roar came from the crack, and then a terrifying and powerful purple energy beam penetrated from the other end of the crack and pointed directly at the magicians. In the second scene, at the critical moment, a boy wearing gorgeous sacred golden armor suddenly appeared in front of the magicians, punched, and made the purple energy beam reverse and sink into the crack. According to the residents who heard the sound, it seemed that they could hear the monster's voice and it was painful. In the third scene, the boy rushed straight into the sky, and the magicians scattered. In the fourth act, the magicians cast magic to clear all the corpses and blood of the monsters, opened the ring with sparks, walked into it and disappeared. Adding the pictures described by the residents before, the town in the fog, the terrifying monsters that appear everywhere at any time, and the coherent thinking, it is easy to perfectly connect the events. Although I have known that this world is crazy, it is much crazier than I imagined. Magicians, monsters from other dimensions, cracks, boys in golden armor, flying, wow. Barton, a standard tough guy agent, couldn't help but complain when he saw these paintings. Barton has never retreated from executing a life-threatening task, but his scalp is numb when he thinks of those terrifying non-human monsters. Agent Natasha Romanoff, who was wearing a Kevlar combat uniform, had a hot body and burgundy curly hair, looked at Phil Coulson and raised her eyebrows. Did our satellite detect the flight trajectory of the boy? Our reconnaissance and geodetic satellites did not find any traces. Natasha Romanoff, maybe the other party used some ability to block and interfere with the satellite. Phil Coulson shook his head. Satellites are divided into many categories, including meteorology, communications, photo reconnaissance, electronic reconnaissance, navigation, nuclear explosion monitoring, missile early warning, ocean monitoring, anti-satellite, etc., and naturally there are also high-resolution ground observation categories. It can clearly monitor and observe the ground, and even observe the buildings and roads on the ground. This is one of the biggest means for their special department to monitor the world. However, what happened in this small town, including the boy's final high-speed flight, was not observed by satellites. Obviously, some means interfered. There is no blood DNA left at the scene, no one saw his face, only the remains of the house and building, and yes, there are also the residents who were devoured without a trace, which is great. Barton spread his hands, looking like he couldn't think of a solution. Natasha Romanoff took over his partner's words. And even if we track down the magician who can release magic, I don't know how he can fly physically. Those residents said they heard a sonic boom, which means that the speed may have reached the Mach level. With such physical strength, I don't want to provoke such a person. Phil Coulson felt helpless. Obviously, these 2 ace agents didn't want to take over at all. Think about it, there is a magician with legendary magic, and a boy who can fly at the speed of Mach level. We have to pray that the other party has some kind of super ability, instead of using the physical body to withstand the wind pressure, otherwise the only thing we can pray for is that the nuclear bomb can cause damage to that kind of body. Don't forget, we are not enemies, use the old method. Phil Coulson gave a hint. There are many ways, and they are not so extreme. They monitor the world, observe and establish data reports on dangerous people. There are definitely other ways, such as contact, recruitment, and cooperation. After speaking, Barton and Phil Coulson both looked at Natasha Romanoff. In this regard, the Natasha Romanoff agent with a hot body, charming face, and top psychology is undoubtedly the best choice. Then you have to find someone to talk to, and I need a chip that can resist the power of the mind. Natasha Romanoff did not refuse. Since she defected from the Red House and joined this mysterious department, she needs to eliminate the confusion and sin in her heart through these tasks. Or it is also paralyzing herself. Danger, she doesn't care. She has nothing to lose, and the magician and the mysterious boy have aroused her curiosity. Let's go and report these things to the director, and I always feel that I will meet them in the future. Phil Coulson smiled and turned to walk towards his special car. Barton and Natasha Romanoff looked at each other and followed closely. Only the agents on the scene were doing the aftermath. At home, a barbecue grill was set up in the backyard at night. Li Zhang's family was having a barbecue dinner. As the head of the family, Li Shang and his son Leon were grilling skewers of beef and mutton and other barbecued meats in front of the grill. In the United States, barbecue also has its own unspoken rules. For example, the barbecue grill often symbolizes that only the head of the family can control it. Leon's ability to stand next to his father to grill also means that Leon has been tacitly regarded as the head of the family to some extent. The two big dogs and the two little babies ran around together. When they smelled the aroma of barbecue, they would run to the grill side by side and look at Li Shang and Leon with their big watery eyes. Their little appearance was so cute. Leon would also pick up the roasted skewers, blow them cool, and then pass them to a few little guys. Then the little baby would wave his little hand to let his brother squat down, and then take a big bite to show his gratitude. "Hey, this is not fair." The head of the family, Li Shang, shouted in dissatisfaction, but the little babies who were happily sharing the skewers with the two big dogs didn't care about their sad old father at all. "This is really strange. You don't spend as much time at home as I do. Why do Lily and Dean like you so much?" the old father said to his eldest son in a jealous tone while grilling skewers. This is the old mother Amy, who was wearing a long shirt and loose blue jeans, came over with a plate and gave her husband a kiss helplessly. "Who told you not to be cool like Leon?" Then she smiled and put the grilled skewers on the plate and took them away. Looking at his wife's back, Li Shang was a little angry. Leon was madly poking his father's lungs. "Lily and Dean told me yesterday that they like me to take them flying the most. The little guys think I am the coolest brother in the world. Dad, you can't do it. Look at your little belly. Tisk, tisk, you should manage your body well." The father was so angry that his face turned red. He retorted, "People will always get fat in middle age, and the food here is high in calories and protein. Look at your Uncle Wendy and the others are already fat. I am not bad, okay?" This is true. In addition to food additives, American food is also high in calories and protein. Because of Li Zhang's family reasons, he pays more attention to healthy eating and matching meat and vegetables. Therefore, whether it is him or Amy, they have good body management, which is good enough compared with the fat bodies of familiar neighbors. However, Leon, inadvertently, lifted the hem and wiped his completely sweat-free cheeks as if because the temperature was hotter next to the grill, revealing his mermaid line and abdominal muscles, which made Li Shang look jealous and envious. The life of a middle-aged man is often not satisfactory without exercise. After all, it is inevitable that physical skills will decline with age. Leon likes to see the gentle father's defense broken, and his heart is very cool, but in order to avoid excessive redness, Leon still whispered to his father to cool him down. "Don't worry, Dad, I will get you a medicine later, and I guarantee that you will be as muscular as Captain America. Let you completely get rid of inferiority." Really, hearing his eldest son's caring words, the father Li Zhang's hands trembled while turning the skewers, and his eyes behind the glasses were full of excitement, but then he explained seriously, "I have never been inferior." "Ah, right. Leon's answer was quite perfunctory, but he picked up a handful of grilled skewers and walked to the dining table, leaving his father who showed signs of redness again. But it was only red for a while, and thinking of Leon's words, he felt happy again. He was even thinking about having a baby. After all, the two little babies had become Leon's little cotton-padded jackets, and he wanted his own little cotton-padded jacket. By the way, he was also imagining his bravery after the event, and his wife's admiring and unbelievable eyes. Just thinking about that picture made him feel as cold as a bottle of ice cola in summer. "Hey, honey, what are you thinking about, laughing so obscenely? Come and eat." However, Amy's shout at the table in the distance still broke his fantasy, and Li Shang quickly replied, "I'm here, honey." The barbecue was very rich. Not only skewers, but also grilled lamb chops, pork chops, broiler chicken, fruit salad, fresh lettuce, rich and varied. The whole family was very happy to eat, including the two big dogs. It is worth mentioning that because the 3-year-old Dean is too young, for health reasons, the barbecue is appropriately fed, mostly milk, cereal, corn porridge, and sausages. Seeing his sister Lily, Leon was so greedy that he was making a fuss. In the end, his mother suppressed him and held him in her arms and fed him mouthful by mouthful. The little guy's face was full of grievances, but the baby did not dare to resist. He looked at his father and brother with his big watery eyes, trying to ask for help. However, the father and son could not afford to offend them, so they just pretended not to see it. So the little guy stayed in his mother's arms, and his little expression was so funny that Leon and Li Shang, father and son, laughed. It was another noisy and warm dinner. Li Shang, who was sitting next to Leon, glanced at Amy who was feeding food across the street and whispered, "Remember Daniel's family?" They moved away, but a new family of residents came, but I always felt that the bearded man with Spanish ancestry was not a normal person. When I passed by, I saw him sitting on his lawn smoking marijuana several times. Usually many people drove to his house, and many people came and went. "Do you think someone brought those things into the town?" Leon answered after chewing the barbecue in his mouth and swallowing it. Marijuana is also a kind of drug. In the United States, this situation is not uncommon. It can be said that this is the world's largest circulation market. The population accounts for less than 5% of the world, but it consumes 80% of the world's opioids. The town has a small population, but these things are basically not there. It can also be regarded as very peaceful, which is why Li Shang brought his wife Amy to this town to settle down. Li Shang hates and dislikes drugs in his heart. He knows that the abuse of these drugs will lead to the complete destruction of a person's life. He hopes to live a happy life and raise his children. But when he saw strangers coming to the town and using those drugs, he immediately aroused his inner disgust. He liked this town very much and didn't want anyone to bring drugs to the town. "Well, I think they should want to let those things circulate here." Li Shang nodded. The town is small and the population is not large, but it is also a market. If it is opened, it will also be a good income, and it is sustainable. As for those guys, he thinks it must be a dealer who came to play the outpost. Tell Sheriff James and let them solve it. I think he will be willing to record it on his resume. Leon said softly. The next evening, there were roars and gunshots from a single-family house in the town. After a while, a dozen men and women in shirts and shorts were shackled and put into the back seat of a police car with their heads down. The strong Sheriff James, wearing a police uniform, looked at the departing convoy and complained to the deputy sheriff, "Didn't these idiots think that such a large number of strangers entering the town would be eye-catching? They sat on the lawn in broad daylight and took drugs. It was stupid beyond imagination. What kind of IQ can a drug addict have, James? Definitely. I will be very grateful to them for adding a big addition to my resume. The bonus next month can buy a good birthday present for my daughter." The deputy sheriff put one hand on his belt, holding a cigarette and squinting his eyes happily. "I won't let these idiots mess up my town." The deputy sheriff agreed. After all, they grew up in this quiet and peaceful town. The feelings between them who can become the sheriff and the deputy sheriff are self-evident. Whoever wants to destroy this peace, they will mercilessly shoot through the guy's head with a bullet. "Let's go to the Princess Bar for a drink. We should celebrate." James put his arm around his old friend's shoulder and walked towards the police car. The town returned to peace. Time passed. A year passed in a blink of an eye, and a little splash appeared. A storm is brewing in Port Madrid on this seemingly peaceful day. Port Madrid, a port city country with a population of 4 million, where the gap between the rich and the poor is very large. As one of the commercial cores of Southeast Asia, the commercial street is centered on Hong Kong Bank and Malaysian Bank. There are many hotels and shopping malls, which are extremely prosperous. The Supreme Hotel is considered one of the best hotels in the world, and the Royal Palace is as luxurious as the Palace of Versailles in France. But under the prosperity, there is also dirt and chaos. In history, the port of Madrid was once a gathering place for pirates. It has a strong pirate culture and refuses to extradite any criminals, so it attracts a large number of fugitives. It is also divided into the upper city and the lower city. The upper class lives a corrupt and modern life, while the poor live in poverty and cheat. The entire port of Madrid, criminals, rich people, middlemen, civilians, mutants, etc. are gathered together. Under the control of the government, a balance has been maintained, which has not been broken so far. On the top floor of a luxurious building, a woman with golden hair, charming but majestic, sitting on the main seat of an oval desk in a gorgeous green dress, the light of the gorgeously decorated office wall lamp shines, the wall talk, the red carpet, the extreme luxury. Behind her, stood a group of fully armed soldiers in combat uniforms, guarding their leader. Yes, she is the leader. No one knows her real name. The title to the outside world is Viper. The actual controller of the entire port of Madrid, and the so-called officials of the government are just following orders. But it is to control a country. Mrs. Viper, with a charming face full of seriousness, stared at the figures in front of her. 4 men and 2 women, wearing combat uniforms made of synthetic fibers, slim and extremely defensive, wearing bulletproof vests, with indifferent expressions, at a disadvantage in numbers, but Viper knows very well how powerful the opponent is. Each person is like a super soldier, with a body as big as the human body, and proficient in various firearms, explosives and other skills. In the past 6 months, this group of people suddenly appeared in Madripo port, broke into the government building directly, controlled the group of officials, and then attacked her and the Viper gang headquarters. In a short time, the Viper gang suffered heavy losses. Even Viper herself is proficient in making poisons, and some of the toxins are very special, even if the gas mask is corroded. On the same day, she might be captured or killed. Fortunately, her Viper gang essentially inherited part of the Hydra faction legacy, and its strength is not weak. It resisted the attack tide and waited for follow-up support to repel this mysterious group of people. In the following 6 months, both sides fought in Madrid and other parts of the world. Assassination, lurking and other means caused her heavy losses, but the key point was that the other side did not suffer any casualties, which was too incredible. Viper was a woman, but a very wise woman. She knew that the other side was just for the control of Madrid port, and her own power could not withstand it, so she decisively launched the first negotiation. I will only talk to your leader. As the leader of a country in secret, Viper was a woman, but she was very cunning and took the lead in speaking and making the first test. On the other side of the long desk, there was also a woman sitting, who was also very beautiful, mature with short black hair, capable and charming. Facing Viper's temptation, she curled her lips and looked at the woman with interest. Ophelia Sarkeesian, Mrs. Viper, no, Mrs. Hydra, you are a smart person, but you'd better understand the gap between you and us. If you think you want to use the explosives buried in the bottom of the building and... The tone paused slightly, and in Viper's expression, he said jokingly, the compound poison is your backup, then I advise you to give up these ideas. Viper's expression recovered and became calm, but doubts and surprise flashed in his eyes. Is it a simple bluff or real confidence to be able to speak out the means that he had prepared long ago so confidently? Viper didn't know, but for some reason, looking at the expression of the woman opposite, she felt that the latter might be very likely. This group of people even investigated their real names and the identity of Mrs. Hydra. Could they be from other Hydra factions? However, she had never heard of anyone being able to build such a terrifying monster soldier. Viper gritted his teeth secretly. If you win, I and my people will withdraw from Madripo harbor. Viper gave up, but given her character, she would definitely seek revenge and return to Madripo harbor if she had the chance in the future. Thank you for your cooperation, but you can't leave, Ms. Ophelia. When Viper heard this, her eyes suddenly became cold. Don't you want to talk to my leader? You. Viper's face was unusually ugly, but seeing the woman's smiling face, she knew why. Although the gap in strength between the two sides was unequal, the other party's psychology and rhetoric were better than hers. I think he should be here soon, don't be so anxious, Ms. Ophelia. Suddenly, not far away, a golden vortex suddenly appeared, attracting the attention of Mrs. Viper and everyone else, and a figure slowly walked out of it. The woman stood up and bent over with several other super soldiers. Welcome the arrival of the king. Well, it really makes people feel the ominous power. It's nice to meet you, Ms. Ophelia. When Mrs. Viper saw the man sitting straight on the chair, her eyes were full of shock. She saw something that ordinary people could not see. Sacred Madripo Port Princess Bar. This is an oasis in the slums of the lower city, a rare place of joy, and countless poor people are willing to spend their hard-earned money here. On the bar in the bar full of lights and wine, a man wearing a red leather jacket, extremely burly and strong, with a beast aura and an eye mask, is drinking. The explosive music and the various colors of lights shining everywhere, combined with the beautiful girls dressed in gorgeous clothes carrying wine trays to serve wine to the guests' various strange shouts and whistles kept coming, it seemed extremely lively and noisy. But this hustle and bustle did not affect the man's interest in drinking. Hey, tough guy, someone is waiting for you. At this time, a graceful girl in a bunny girl costume walked behind the man, leaned on his shoulder, and said softly. The man turned his head and looked in the direction the girl pointed. At the booth at the edge of the bar, a man in a suit was sitting on the sofa drinking. He picked up the wine glass and walked over. "Thank you, I would rather you say this word to me in another environment." "Ha, baby, I'm looking forward to it." The girl laughed, then turned and left to receive guests. The man walked to the booth and sat on the sofa opposite the man in the suit, throwing a cigar over. "O'Donnell. You haven't been here much recently, Patch." Although O'Donnell was wearing a suit, his hairstyle and slightly messy demeanor made him look a little out of place, but he never cared. He took the cigar, cut off the cigarette butt, burned it and dropped it into his mouth, and said loudly, "I've been busy with some things recently. I heard that it's not peaceful here this year." The man called Patches raised his glass and clinked glasses with O'Donnell. He was not an ordinary person. As soon as he stepped into the port of Madrid, he smelled the breath of war and danger. He had experienced this breath before. "Yeah, your old friend is not doing well recently." Viper. Patches' eyes condensed. As an old friend, he knew very well that the mysterious woman was not simple. It was even with his help that the other party completely controlled the port of Madrid. Such a dangerous woman would actually have trouble. For Madrid, definitely, under the calm water, there are huge amounts of storms. This storm has killed many so-called big shots in this country. O'Donnell sighed. Although he was not a simple person, he did not even have the ability to protect himself in a storm of this level. If it were not for the confidence of this friend in front of him, he would have even considered running away. "Do you know who did it?" Patches was silent for a while, and the cigar in his mouth blew out a lot of smoke. "I don't know, it's very mysterious. I guess even your old friend doesn't know who the opponent is. It seems that this trouble is not ordinary." As the party involved, Viper, and the local snake O'Donnell also had no news, so Patch was surprised. "Why, don't you want to help?" O'Donnell said jokingly. "At the beginning, I and her were just because of a deal. She helped me once, and I helped her once. Now I have nothing to do with her." Patch said indifferently, but before he finished speaking, his face suddenly changed. He stood up suddenly, turned his head with wide eyes and looked in a certain direction. Although there were only guests and walls playing in the bar in that direction. Seeing Patch's appearance, O'Donnell also stood up. He could see that his friend, at the moment, was like a beast that had noticed a terrible enemy, and was full of vigilance, and a beast breath was blowing in his face. O'Donnell didn't know, but Patch smelled it. His beast instinct felt a sudden terrible existence. It was so powerful that the hair on his body stood up. The beast instinctively sent out warning signals in his brain, and he couldn't help but feel extremely scared. "Who is it?" Patch felt that his back was soaked with sweat. With that instinctive fear, he had completely lost the courage to fight. If it weren't for his strong will, he would have turned around and ran away from the bar, Madrid Slope, and away from the unknown area. At the same time, in the huge and luxurious office on the top floor of the Viper building, the handsome man sitting opposite Viper at the oval desk said, "Ha," turned his head slightly and looked diagonally to the left. "It's really a wolf, with excellent and keen perception ability." Just this one glance made a certain tough guy in the Princess Bar in the downtown area feel the overwhelming but invisible pressure, making him clench his fists and gradually extend a pair of sharp steel claws from the fingers, and a low roar came from his throat. Fortunately, this mysterious and unknown existence retracted his gaze, and the invisible and terrible pressure dissipated. Mr. Patch Beast's stress state was slightly relieved, but the passivity of biological instinct still made him feel uncomfortable. "Logan." O'Donnell was a little anxious and nervous, and even called out Mr. Patch's real name, but the latter did not care, but sweated profusely, sat down slowly with a nervous look, and retracted the steel claws that stretched out from the bone fingers. His hand also trembled and took a big sip of the wine glass. "What's going on? Is there an enemy?" "I don't know, O'Donnell. You have to pray that the man is not an enemy, or that he has no hostility towards you, me, or even this country, otherwise, I can't think of any reason for us to live." Logan, who was wearing a Patch identity, shook his head. Now he is a little skeptical about life. As a person who has lived for dozens or even hundreds of years, he has experienced too much and seen all kinds of strange, weird abilities or powerful opponents. But in the end, he was the one who survived, but Logan was sure that no one could give him the feeling he had at this moment. A kind of despair, a kind of powerlessness, a kind of even far away, separated by countless buildings, a glance from afar, he even lost the courage to resist, just want to escape, such a terrible oppressive feeling, even Magneto, who he once thought was the most powerful enemy, had never had it. Is it the source of the turmoil during this period? O'Donnell was a smart man, he guessed something immediately, and his face turned ugly. How terrifying must the unknown mysterious person be who made Logan behave so unbearably? Such a person, controlling the port of Madrid Slope, is also a huge amount of gambling risk for a local snake like him, because he is not sure whether the other party will directly choose to clean up the entire Madrid Slope. As a place in the lower city for smuggling and selling information, if it were not for Logan and Viper, it might have been targeted by other criminal leaders long ago. Logan was silent, although his instinct urged him to leave as soon as possible and stay away from the dangerous mysterious man. But he suppressed this feeling. He didn't intend to leave. O'Donnell was his friend, and he had a stake in the bar. If it was during the time when he had just lost his memory and was frustrated, he would never have meddled in other people's business, but it was different now. There were many of his compatriots in this country, and even more poor people. If that dangerous mysterious man had any conspiracy, he had to find a way to stop it. Pray, O'Donnell, no one understood the cruelty of war better than Logan, especially a war with such powerful and extraordinary power. Logan sighed. It's hard to imagine that the person who could force me to this point would be so young. Viper Ophelia looked at the handsome and overly young face of the boy sitting opposite her. She had thought of countless possibilities, but she had never thought that the leader of a group of terrible soldiers was actually a boy who looked less than 20 years old. From his every move, she was already wondering if this boy was some ancient noble who could no longer suppress his ambition. I don't have much time, Ms. Ophelia. My name is Leon. I need your talent. Leon's word, time, is a pun, so he speaks very straightforwardly. If you want me, you have to pay a big price. Ophelia had guessed this possibility before. She gave Leon a charming and teasing look, as if she wanted to see if this young boy would be moved by this. Unfortunately, she was indeed very beautiful, but not to the extent that she could affect Leon. Leon stood up and walked towards Ophelia step by step. The oval long table in front of him suddenly split into two halves and was repelled, leaving a straight line. Ophelia's beautiful eyes narrowed when she saw this. The table was made of composite materials, and she had carefully prepared poison gas storage. What was the means to separate it? Some kind of super ability. The fully armed soldiers behind Ophelia raised their weapons and aimed at Leon. However, Leon seemed to walk slowly, but in fact he came to Ophelia in almost the blink of an eye. Bending over, the fingers that looked like works of art lifted the opponent's chin and made him look up slightly. The two looked at each other. Behind them, the soldiers who were originally loyal had their fingers on the triggers, but they couldn't press them down no matter what, because their bodies were no longer controlled by their own thoughts. The contract that once made you ecstatic should have troubled you, Ms. Ophelia. Looking directly into the beautiful eyes of Viper Ophelia, Leon whispered. The voice was very small, but it exploded in the ears of the former like thunder. Viper Ophelia's beautiful and charming face suddenly changed, and her heart was like a turmoil. Contract. What contract? Ophelia subconsciously avoided the eyes of the handsome boy in front of her. The other's pupils, like black gems, seemed to be able to see through people's souls, making her feel an inexplicable fear in her heart at this moment. Signing a contract with an ancient and powerful old god and fulfilling your wish, what seemed like a sweet treat has become a poison that troubles you, isn't it? Leon pointed out the shadow that Ophelia has always kept in her heart. Let Ophelia's wandering eyes refocus on Leon's eyes, biting her red lips, with a complex expression. I don't believe you can solve it. Ophelia looked up. Her breath was as fragrant as orchid, but it was more like a beautiful venomous snake spitting out its tongue. I need proof. Proof. Leon smiled lightly, turned and walked to the French window of the office. Ophelia frowned, looking at the back of the man, not knowing what he wanted to do. A year ago, I could solve you with absolute power and conquer you, but I am waiting patiently. The country I want is not this kind of greed and corruption, poverty and crime. Distortion and chaos. In the past 6 months, the so-called struggle you think is too small. The real game does not exist here, Ophelia. You have seen the horror, but you have never faced it directly, Boom. As the voice fell, a dazzling and terrifying aura suddenly burst out from Leon's body, and the vast energy that was almost desperate was vented wantonly. The entire Madripo port, and even the entire surrounding sea area, began to shake wildly. The sea was rolling and boiling. All the people in Madripo, the criminals with blood on their hands, the greedy and corrupt officials, all knelt down under such a mighty atmosphere. Rumble. Above the sky, dark clouds gathered, and the thick clouds exploded with thousands of dense thunder and lightning. The raging thunder rolled, pierced the sky, swept in all directions, and shocked the world, as if the end of the world was coming. The earth was shaking, and the people and animals in the whole country of Madripo felt an irresistible breath. The soul and body were trembling and shaking. On the top floor of the building, Viper and the so-called Viper gang, who were actually Hydra soldiers, Ophelia knelt down. Melina and several super soldiers, who were not hit by such a breath, could not help but kneel down instinctively, looking at the tall back like the scorching sun with fanaticism. The surging sacred breath, the gap from the soul and genetic level, was something that no will could resist or resist. The whole country was full of confusion. People who were struggling for life seemed to have a god wearing noble and gorgeous golden armor in their minds, and an ethereal and majestic voice echoed in their ears. My people, I am your king. I will lead you to break through this decadent, greedy and corrupt system and welcome the dawn. The land here does not allow any darkness to grow. Embrace the light you desire and swear in my name. Boom! The dazzling golden light column broke through the building and rushed into the sky. In the unbelievable and excited eyes of countless people, the night was dispelled, and the golden ripples rolled back the sky, like a long river, illuminating the entire Madrid port. Under the light of the golden river, people felt that their defective bodies, which had suffered from hunger, disease, and even human or accidental factors, were rejuvenated. Many disabled people looked at the regrown hands and feet, which were eroded by hunger and disease, and their skin and bone bodies became healthy again. Everyone's face was full of tears, and they knelt on the ground with excitement, looking up at the sky, the golden picture flowing like a long river, full of enthusiasm. In the confusion, numbness, like the walking dead, they found the dawn and hope. Great God, thank you for your kindness and mercy, thank you for bringing hope and light to us who are in darkness and despair. I will dedicate everything I have. Thank you, great God, you saved my daughter, thank you. God, thank you for generously shining light on the world. I will dedicate my soul and everything. People in deep darkness and despair, when facing the light that is shining, the extreme change of emotions will turn them into the most loyal believers. These people are all in dire straits. In this country, the rich upper-class people enjoy all the most luxurious materials. When material life reaches its peak, what they pursue is more stimulating perverted spiritual needs. But this demand often brings about the harm to others. Most of the lower classes, diseases, hunger, and even accidental or man-made injuries will cause their bodies to be eroded and their lives to be dark. They try to resist, but the result is a more cruel blow. In the end, they become numb and become zombies. They can't see the future or the light. Many people also have their own children, but in such a difficult life, children are often a burden. The dirty and messy environment and the shortage of food will make these children die in the powerless anger or numbness of their parents. At the moment, these people waiting for death have welcomed the light, not a ray of light, but the light that dispels all the darkness. For them, God's mercy and unsparing hope have saved their lives, children, wives, etc. Then, at this moment, they will also risk everything they have without hesitation. Definitely, except for those criminals who once had blood on their hands and carried sins, regardless of gender, age, poverty or wealth, power, human or mutant, in despair and fear, the sacred flame began to burn from the body and soul. This picture was introduced into everyone's mind, and the ugly memories buried in the hearts of these people emerged one by one. In the eyes of everyone's pleasure and hatred, the body and soul turned into ashes. At this moment, this land that breeds darkness will be purified in the flames. At this moment, the number of dead people is as high as 100,000. For a country with a population of millions, this ratio is ridiculously high, but this is Madripo port. Their death will witness the beginning of the change of this country. It will not be the end. Leon has been patient for a year. In addition to accumulating his own small universe, he has developed super serum, trained a super soldier corps, and lurked and investigated in Madripo port. Leon chose to take action today, and even killed those guys, because he had already made preparations. The industries and funds of these people had been plundered before they died. This is a huge fortune, even the GDP of the entire country of Madripo port for several years. After all, These people are either rich people, corrupt officials, or gangsters and smugglers. There is cash, money in bank cards, and more are real industries. Among them, the industries of those rich businessmen are not only limited to Madripo port, but are all over the world. All this money will be used to develop the people's livelihood, construction and development in Madripo port. Those who once had no jobs and were poor also get their own jobs in the development. All of this stems from the plan that Melina spent countless days and nights to build a think tank through Drakef's industry and power. These think tanks that were recruited, either for practice or with high IQ and proficiency in people's livelihood development, were also injected with super soldier gene serum, and their brain thinking would be further developed. Their meticulousness was enough to support the development of a country with a population of several million. Death ushered in a new life. Ophelia also witnessed this scene. After all, the memory transmission also included her. When Leon's breath was smooth, she stepped forward in a daze, and Melina and other super soldiers looked cold. But Leon waved his hand, and Melina and the others did not move. They let Ophelia walk to Leon's side and overlook the city below, which was dyed golden by the golden river in the sky through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The miraculous scene filled her heart with shock. The brilliant gold, like flowing gold, was as beautiful as a dream. Obviously, everything she saw in her mind just now was not an illusion. Is this really the power that humans can possess? Such a woman who has experienced countless lives and deaths and seen true horror still couldn't believe it. This is just the beginning, Ophelia. Leon's mouth curled up, and his voice was more majestic and unquestionable than a year ago. What do you want me to do? Ophelia turned her head to look at the man's profile, which was perfect, and under the golden light, it also added mystery and sacredness. Sokovia. Leon spit out the name of a country. Ophelia was stunned for a moment, and quickly recalled the information about Sokovia in her memory. It is a small country that is even poorer and more chaotic than Madripoor, and the person who rules there is Stark. Do you want Sokovia to become the second Madripoor port? Leon turned his head slightly to look at the Viper lady, without saying anything. The pair of light blue eyes were very beautiful and calm, but Ophelia's heart beat slightly. After a silent sigh, she lowered her noble head and knelt on one knee. I am willing to offer my loyalty, and I only hope you can spread a little kindness and mercy. Remove the contract for me. When you are done, Ophelia. Yes. Ophelia stood up, respectful and humble. Leon was not surprised by Ophelia's surrender. The other party buried the worries in his heart. The contract came from the ancient god Exasong, one of the earliest life forms on Earth, the god of black magic, and the dark book was also his handwriting. The high level of its life reached the level of multi-universe. However, he cannot come to Earth, or he is just a wanderer who escapes death. Leon has accumulated a considerable amount of microcosm after a year. Compared with a year ago, his improvement is more than a little bit. There is an absolute difference between the strong and the weak in the microcosm at the level of the sixth sense. The gap between the strong and the weak is not 100 times, 1,000 times, or even tens of thousands of times. Definitely not worth mentioning compared with the level of Sisson. It's just a contract. It's not difficult to solve. At most, it will be noticed by the old devil. If he wants to do anything, he will have to wait until he has the courage to fight against the God Eater. Ophelia didn't know these contents, but she felt Leon's seemingly endless power in person, and she had no choice but to surrender. In fact, she also hoped to solve the fatal contract. Viper Ophelia, including her subordinates, the Viper gang, cooperated with Melina, several super soldiers, and a large number of soldiers who had already lurked in the Super Soldier Legion, to control the entire Madripo port, and the power transfer was very easy. Because those opponents have turned to ashes, even the crime bosses, gang leaders, and thugs are mostly dead. The remaining ones are some people who have just joined, have not committed crimes, or have not committed too many crimes. Some people with conscience are sweating and are still afraid. It is impossible to resist. They want to take out their hearts and prove to the great and terrible God that they are also oppressed innocent civilians. This night illuminated by gold will not be peaceful. Leon stood alone in front of the French window in the office, and a gentle voice came from behind him. You surprised me, the boy who changed his destiny. I am just walking on an unknown road, trying to break free from my destiny. What do you think, magician? Please like my videos and subscribe for more videos.